Good evening, televiewers. You're welcome to today's edition of Prime Hour on My Media Prime. This evening, we're going to be zooming in on what the teachers are living in Cameroon, especially with respect to the strike action that has been on for above 2 weeks now in Cameroon. But we are starting with the sad situation of the teacher named Hamidou, who died yesterday after serving this nation as a physical education teacher for over 10 years without being integrated and without a salary. We try to discuss and ponder on what possibly did not work for him to be integrated, and similar situations that other teachers of the public sector are living in Cameroon. Secondly, we're going to be looking at the strike action, where the leaders of this recent strike action that is being undertaken by teachers yesterday issued a statement saying that they were not going to back down. They were going to continue this strike action until all of their worries are addressed, especially after they got information or news of the demise of their colleague in the Far North region, Amadou. We are going to be discussing on these two topics with our panelists who are already seated. 3 of them are in the house already. I'll start with you, son Derick, who is a member of the civil society. We're glad to have you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Leo. It's always a pleasure. Good evening to fellow panelists, and good evening to all the teachers in Cameroon who are fighting to have a better future in order to be able to impact knowledge on the children entrusted to them.
Okay, we also are in the company of Mr. Basil Ebogo. He is sitting in under the canopy of the CPDM party. Bonsoir et bienvenue.
Good evening, Leonard. Good evening to everybody. I really thank you for the invitation you give me today to participate on this important debate. Okay. So my name is Etogo Basil. Basil Etogo.
Etogo, and not Ebogo.
Et non Ebogo. Ok, je représente le RDPC sur ce plateau. Et je voudrais, n'est-ce pas, dire bonsoir à tous les auditeurs, les spectateurs, téléspectateurs qui nous suivent en ce moment. Et bonsoir aux panélistes. Je voudrais, n'est-ce pas, exprimer déjà devant la mort 1 minute de silence au nom, n'est-ce pas, de Hamidou, qui est décédé, n'est-ce pas, du côté de Béga, enseignant de DPS au lycée de Béga. Donc, au nom du RDPC, je voudrais, n'est-ce pas, demander 1 minute de silence, s'il vous plaît. Merci. Je voudrais aussi ajouter, n'est-ce pas, les condoléances du parti à toute la famille de Hamidou qui a été endeuillée. Et nous attendons certainement les condoléances aussi de la part du gouvernement, notamment du ministère de l'enseignement secondaire. Donc voilà un peu ce que je voudrais dire, n'est-ce pas, dans ma première prise de parole.
We also in the company of senior barrister Ashu Emmanuel. He is the national president of the Reform Party. Good evening, senior barrister, and welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Leo. Good evening. Special good evening to Mr. Dipita Ebonge, regional president of Reform Party for Littoral. Good evening to Reform Party militants in the East, Southwest and Northwest and Littoral also. Good evening, Mr. Ebogo. Good evening, Song. My special condolences go to the family of late Hamidou.
Hamidou, yeah.
I hope this government will avoid similar situations in the future by taking prompt action to remedy the situation of the teachers. Okay. Because I prefer having them alive than seeing them go prematurely.
I'll still start with you, senior barrister. How do we understand that Hamidou served this nation for 10 years, worked with a government high school in the far north region, and could not be integrated and did not receive the required salary that he was due.
Well, Mr. Hamidou, unfortunately, he's no longer with us. This is a very good example of a civil servant who is conscientious, because if you see somebody working for 10 years without being integrated, it means that he did not spend any time running to Yaoundé to chase his files. That is just the simple answer, because if he had been going to Yaoundé to chase his files, he wouldn't wait for 10 years. So this is somebody who was very job conscious. He worked conscientiously for 10 years, hoping that his files were going to be processed automatically, which is not the case with what we have in the Ministry of Public Service. So this really calls for concern, because that ministry, every day they tell us that they are reforming, they bring all sorts of computerized programs, complex in nature, diverse in application, but the problem is still there. You cannot run a country as big as Cameroon, well over 30 million people. You cannot put all that inside a computer. That is not feasible. You see, that over-centralization is showing its limits, and you cannot continue running the current population of this country on those basis of one ministry having everybody inside. It's not possible. You see, they talk of decentralization. When you look at decentralization, they don't even, there is no room for teachers to be recruited locally, as Reform Party is advocating. You see, we would prefer that teachers be recruited locally and managed locally, so that a man who is recruited to go and teach in a high school, his files should be treated by the region. Why should you wait for Yaoundé when they'll tell you that the computers broke down and you have to wait for technicians to come from Europe to come and fix? Or somebody takes the file and puts under the table. If you don't come and give him money, the file doesn't leave. So these are problems that come about, bring this type of situation where you have people suffering unduly. You have this situation where they authorize the PTA to
recruit,
to pay teachers, because it is the PTA that has been sustaining them. And funny enough, you have the minister who will tell you that officially people should pay 35,000 francs of PTA levy. They know where that money is being used. They know that the money will be used to pay teachers, because they don't have the time to process those files and make the salaries come. Well, there's another aspect of it. When the monies are actually paid, let us speak the truth. At times, it is a bonanza for the civil servants who receive this money. But the suffering that they endure before receiving the money is really horrendous. And we think that something should be done. If they cannot process the files early, they should put in a situation where they can be given salary advances to this teacher, either from the treasury, regional treasury, or from somewhere. Let these people be getting something that can enable them to live, because you cannot expect somebody to go and teach in a place that is not his region of origin, and he has no salary. In other words, you are encouraging them to erect malpractice as a rule of governance, which is not correct.
Monsieur Togo, est-ce qu'on peut vraiment comprendre ce qui n'a pas marché, que Monsieur Hamidou a eu à travailler pendant 10 ans sans salaire, sans être intégré à la fonction publique? Est-ce qu'il est en train de relever l'hypercentralisation des choses? Il faut que tout le monde aille à Yaoundé suivre les documents.
Oui, Léonard, il faut déjà relever que nous, au sein du RDPC, nous sommes solidaires, n'est-ce pas, des revendications légitimes des enseignants. Nous encourageons, n'est-ce pas, la plateforme qui a été mise en place par tous les acteurs sociaux, que ce soit les pouvoirs publics, à travers le ministère de l'Éducation de base, le ministère de l'Éducation secondaire et les différents syndicats des enseignants, à véritablement mettre sur pied, n'est-ce pas, des réformes concrètes pour trouver des solutions définitives à ce problème qui perdure déjà, il faut le reconnaître, depuis les années 90, que les enseignants avaient déjà commencé à émettre certaines revendications. Donc nous soutenons cette plateforme et nous appelons les acteurs politiques que nous sommes à véritablement se mobiliser afin de donner, n'est-ce pas, de leur porter de leur voix, n'est-ce pas, afin que cette plateforme puisse donner des fruits concrets et définitifs à la résolution de ces problèmes. Donc c'est ça déjà mon interpellation ici, parce qu'il faut quand même le rappeler, hein, nous avons des collègues au sein du RDPC qui sont les enseignants et qui vivent cette situation, parce que ce n'est pas simplement une situation qui est vécue par d'autres personnes, mais nous, dans notre parti, nous avons, n'est-ce pas, des enseignants, des collègues, des camarades politiques qui vivent ces situations qu'il faut déplorer. Et nous appelons, n'est-ce pas, à cet effet, le pouvoir public à véritablement trouver des moyens de résoudre définitivement ces problèmes. Il faut quand même l'avouer, c'est une situation qui n'arrange personne. De voir à quel niveau est-ce que nous en sommes arrivés là. Donc, pour ma part, je pense que il faut encourager la plateforme qui, pour l'instant, est mise en place. Je pense qu'il y a des résolutions qui sont apportées progressivement. Lorsque je vois les revendications qui ont été, n'est-ce pas, apportées par cette corporation, je pense qu'il y a une quinzaine de revendications. Nous notons déjà qu'il y a certaines revendications qui commencent déjà à trouver des solutions, notamment au niveau de l'intégration. Je pense qu'actuellement, il y a près de 5000 intégrations qui sont déjà effectives au niveau du ministère de la fonction publique, la réforme administrative. Et il y a 2000 pour la région de l'Ouest, pratiquement 2000 pour la région de l'Ouest, qui sont déjà disponibles. Et nous appelons, n'est-ce pas, ces enseignants à les retirer, n'est-ce pas, des intégrations au niveau de la délégation régionale des enseignements secondaires. Donc, il y a aussi les arriérés des frais de primes de correction d'APE qui a été débloqué, à pratiquement 2,7 milliards qui a été débloqué. Je crois que, sous cet angle-là, vu l'esprit qui prévaut, les pouvoirs publics ont pour ambition, n'est-ce pas, à définitivement résoudre ce problème. Et nous devons les accompagner, nous les acteurs politiques. Et j'appelle ici les enseignants à faire très attention, afin qu'il n'y ait pas de récupération politique dans leurs revendications, qui sont légitimes, il faut le dire. Il faut éviter qu'il y ait de la récupération politique dans ce temps. Parce que nous savons que lorsque les politiques s'y mêlent, ça crée, n'est-ce pas, un embouglio où personne ne se reconnaît. Nous devons accompagner la plateforme qui est actuellement mise en place. Nous devons encourager tous ces acteurs à véritablement trouver une solution définitive. Et nous, en tant que leaders politiques, nous devons, n'est-ce pas, conscientiser et sensibiliser les uns et les autres à ne pas y mêler dans la politique, dans cette affaire qui ressort, qui relève uniquement du social.
Okay. Good evening to you, Fonbi Alexander, Maximilian Mark, Makia Valentine, Favor Desmond, Jovi Best and Nice to you, Ndiwum, who is also watching us, Ndiwum Emmanuel, who is watching us, Tamfu Sidwan, our correspondent in Kumba. Good evening to all of you watching us on our social media handle. We were talking about the issue where almost everybody has to go to Yaoundé. Hamidou worked for 10 years, was never integrated, did not receive his salary. Can we also understand the slow pace at which files are processed at the level of Yaoundé?
Thank you very much, Mr. Leo. I will start by telling you that the case of Hamidou is just an eye-opener. It's just sad, or it's just a shame that Hamidou is used as the experiment phase to stir up the reality, because there are many Hamidous out there. You know, when people graduate from school and they have to compile documents from one office to the other, and these documents, you always get story that one file is missing or another one is missing. And you will have to look for godfathers in the middle who have to facilitate your files to reach the right offices. It is very sad that after being trained as a teacher, after being trained, tested, qualified, and sent to the field to teach, one is asked to deposit files and the files get missing in the hands of professionals. And the procedures, you have, we talk of a country where we are talking of decentralization. Everything is centralized in the middle. If you do not have somebody to follow up your files, then these files will always get missing. Sometimes people deliberately remove some documents from some files so that you get to connect them to facilitate them follow up your document. It's really appalling and downgrading to see that teachers who are to be respected in the society, teachers that we believe are the foundation stone of every society, are treated this way. What happens to the systems? What happens to the control systems that we need to put in place to make sure that documents reach one office to the other? You deposit your document today, the next day you go there, the document does not process to the next office. Why? What is happening? What is happening? It is because the system lacks checks and balances. Others are followed up with people's document in the Ministry of Secondary Education, MINIFROPA. Sometimes you follow up document. There are sometimes, Mr. Liu, have gotten testimonies of teachers when they go to MINISEG, MINIFROPA, and then you see the kind of laxity with which you are received. Someone sits in an office and tells you, il faut reviendre à 12. And you see people, you live from maybe Southwest, Bamenda, or from a village right far at Abu, to go to Yaoundé to process document, and someone in a lackadaisical manner tells you that if you come back at 2 o'clock, as if you are the one paying the person's transport or housing allowance. I think we really need to sit up, because the teachers have committed no crime to warrant such treatment, Mr. Liu.
Okay. Some persons are of the opinion that he was not integrated because surely he was asked some money from Yaoundé, and because, like he said, he is a lawyer, an objective Cameroonian, he preferred to stay until the process goes on naturally. Are these not some of the practices that we should actually work against? Persons erecting themselves in Yaoundé as gatekeepers, you need to give them money for them to facilitate your file.
Yeah, in fact, I believe very strongly that the case of Hamidou is just one of the fallout of high, strong centralization of power, and that the state has been unable to decentralize its administrative integrity, territorial integrity since 1992 as announced by the Constitution. The impact we have just seen. Remember that education, the domain of education, became one of the competence of decentralized entities, which means education was supposed to be within the councils, and the mayors were the one to control education, which means recruiting teachers and who teaches where, and salaries are paid if the system is respected. But then people will tell you that we have a beautiful, beautiful legal system. The laws have been written down, and so if we look at the laws in space, decentralization has come to help Cameroonians and is going to do us the best. The Hamidou case simply gives a tips of an iceberg that Hamidou has been used as a laboratory rat to maybe demonstrate the inefficiency of the government. How much are we even talking of that salary for somebody rendering services for close to 10 years, unable to meet up with basic health hospital bills at a local hospital, not even a reference hospital that we might be thinking that the sum was so huge? Has the government equally not heard before now that Hamidou has been hospitalized? And this same government has taken upon himself to evacuate those who are even supposed to be on retirement that occupy top position to get treated abroad, rather than active Cameroonians who are in service. The teacher in Cameroon is always looked upon as a merciful candidate to resolve the economic turbulence of this particular nation. Since 1992, we understand very well that the salaries of teachers were slashed down. It is only within the teaching domain that you are recruited, and you have to wait for another 2 years before salaries are even passed. I mean, even those who are working. This is not the same with the National School of Administration and Magistracy. It is not the same case with the armed forces of men in uniform. Is it not out of pity that teachers have been looked upon in Cameroon? Can a teacher be treated well like we have equally seen in other nations? Serving a nation the very first priority is the quality of education those people receive. When you look at Hamidou's case again, it tells us that a lot of intermediate work, not only at the teaching domain, but at the level of the Ministry of Public Service, when you move around that wall, I'm telling you, just to greet somebody in an office, you need somebody that will direct you to the office. For somebody to take you there, you need that lubrication, the lubricant. They say, no, it is just an act of just knowing somebody. I will take you there. We are talking of advancement. People are asking for advancement, something which is expected to be automatic. That you have changed from one level to another, your money was just supposed to be automatic. In Cameroon, we need to go on strike. We need to march around for things which are supposed to be done normally. Somewhere again, I was shocked for those who talk of logement, that they have added you 4,500 on your salary. For you to have that 4,500, you have to compile a host of documents again for you to receive logement of 4,500. It is a pity. That's what we call housing. Now, within the standard, is it right? What is the issue with documentation? So just the process of documentation, are you thinking of 4,500? What do? You are discouraged. Just making the documents that will cost you again another 30,000, then okay, it's ever 2 or 5 years now, you want to go and follow up. So you have counted 4,500 times 12 months, it looks interesting. The moment you get to the walls of that same ministry, somebody is telling you that there is 30% you have to give him. Then he continues with your file. Is it not the time, after the government has spent a lot of billions on internet, a lot of billions on telecommunications, that you can sit in Furawa, you may be somewhere in Kolofata, send your document and the ministry receive? Can't we work online with documentations today in Cameroon? Why then is the need for what we call the smart economy? The smart economy we have been preaching is that people can stay where they are and still have their things done. Has Hamidou not complained from Yaoundé? Is Yaoundé not aware? Even the school, this young man has been teaching. It is really shocking because the students of that school were equally touched. I saw them writing, they needed their teacher. Their teacher needed the state, but the state could not respond. This is how Cameroon is. It will not be possible that you serve a nation from a true mindset, a true church mind, and others live in glass houses and unable to make proper decisions. I want us to come very briefly. Remember what caused the Arab Spring? This gentleman lit off himself because of the taxes asked by the council, the local council, the bachelor's degree holder from a small business. The Hamidou's case is one which is supposed to revolutionize public service in Cameroon. Okay.
Good evening, Mr. Liu and the panelists. Good evening to you. Good evening to you guys in the studio. But wait, to how come those teachers on strike are saying they have worked for 10 years without payments? Are they on their senses? You have worked for 1 year and you have not been paid, and you still continue working. Well, except they were doing charity work. Okay. Paul is writing from Boya. Good evening to you. Paul, yes, I'm sure it's patriotism. Greetings to you in the studio. My condolences to the loss of family in this country. I'm not surprised. Eyong is writing from Ngaoundere. Good evening to you. Good evening to you all in the studio. There is nothing strange in Cameroon. One is trained and approved as quality by the same country, later delayed with reason as not having complete documents just because they need money. I believe with the use of cameras to monitor work will help a lot. Young Felix is writing from Yaoundé. Good evening to you. Felix, a senior barrister. I want us to take a listener. Let us watch one of these ladies who are living the situation of Hamidou and is asking the state to come to her assistance, that she needs her money. Can we take a listen to that?
Tu n'avais pas pitié de moi et pitié de la lance de fer de la nation. J'ai deux filles, deux adorables filles qui peut-être ont pris l'intelligence de leur mère. Je ne veux pas voir leur éducation bafouée. Payez-moi mes salaires, suspendez mon contrat, mais donnez-moi la sueur de mon front. Je saurai quoi faire après ça. Je ne veux pas abandonner. Je n'abandonnerai pas. Je ne suis pas parmi les losers. Payez-moi mon argent. Même si c'est combien, donnez-moi. Donnez-moi mon argent. Donnez-moi mon argent. Je dois payer la maison. Je dois nourrir les enfants. Je dois Ils doivent aller à l'école, la santé. Moi-même qui ai une santé encore fragile. Payez-moi mon argent. Payez-moi mon argent. Excellent Joseph Lee. Excellent Manalova. Payez-moi mon argent. J'ai 2 filles. Est-ce qu'on peut faire l'esclavage dans son pays? Est-ce qu'on peut faire l'aventure dans son propre pays? Je suis plus qu'une immigrée. Donnez-moi mon salaire. Même les prisonniers, on doit boire, en manger ou dormir. Quand on va envoyer ici dans la Damawa, c'était pour me détruire. Voltaire a dit, le travail est loin de nous. Le vice, la nuit et le besoin. Je sors tous les matins.
Yes, Hamidou is no more. I'm sure he made such pleas and was never attended to. The situation is not too good because we have many Hamidous out there.
Mr. Leo, the situation is worse than we're looking at. We're talking about teachers, but I think the true picture is that this is what is happening is true of the entire public service, with the exception of some specialized schools.
Police uniform.
Exception of some specialized schools where you talk of police, police college and all those. When they come from those colleges, you see, it's very funny because if somebody who lives in Nam and sends his file to the Ministry of Justice, that sends to public service automatically, because they know the number of people who went through the ENAM. It should be the same thing for those who live École Normale. You know the number, you know the candidates, you know the people who were trained. Why do you allow some people, look, as you see, listening to that woman, this is really pathetic. How can somebody be a slave in his or her own country? This is terrible. She has rents to pay. She has 2 children. She has medical bills. She has to feed herself and her family. She has to pay transportation to go to school. Oh my God. What are we exposing people to? It's really bad. I think in the meantime, some interim solution has to be found before those files are chased. I would advise strongly that the government instruct the regional treasuries to do something for these teachers. Because if they have to wait for those files to be located and treated, you look at the bill that was tabled. They say the salary arrears of teachers stands at about 181 billion.
Government has over
oh
200 billion.
Oh my God. Where would they get that type of money now? No, they should give instructions so that some first aid, financial first aid be given to these teachers. Let them start breathing at least. If it's possible to, because they are administrative houses, if some of them can be lodged to reduce the pressure, the social pressure on them, measures should be taken. The councils should look for housing and for accommodation for these teachers. And here we are talking of teachers of the public service. We are still to look at
The private sector.
teachers of the private sector
We are going to be looking
who
at that
are
next
worse off. If these ones can be crying,
Crying.
then those ones should be digging their graves. It's terrible. It's really terrible.
We are going to be looking at the situation of teachers in the private sector next week. Monsieur Etego, quand on voit, on écoute, on regarde ce qui se passe, est-ce que ce n'est pas la complaisance de certaines personnes à Yaoundé à qui les responsabilités ont été données, qui ne font pas le travail? Parce que on savait déjà qu'ils vont quitter l'école et qu'ils seront normalement engagés et que les salaires... Comment expliquer ça?
Léonard, lorsque nous constatons, nous observons les faits, ça a l'air comme... ça a l'air tout vrai, ce que vous dites. Hein? Parce qu'il est quand même inadmissible que depuis, je pense, 90, que le chef d'État avait demandé à ce qu'on prenne des mesures définitives afin de signer le fameux décret d'application des enseignants qui, jusqu'à aujourd'hui, n'a pas encore été signé parce qu'il y a certains éléments qui n'ont pas encore été pris en compte dans les discussions, dans les différentes discussions avec les syndicats. On ne comprend donc pas qu'est-ce qui fait problème. On doit interroger l'administration qui nous gère. Parce que c'est là où nous citons généralement les problèmes de lenteur administrative, de corruption, comme on a dit tout à l'heure sur
l'inertie que le président a décrit.
Que le président décrit chaque fois dans certaines administrations. C'est le lieu ici d'interpeller tous ceux qui gèrent, n'est-ce pas, ce domaine d'activité qui relève quand même je peux parler, je voudrais dire d'une haute importance. Parce que s'il y avait quand même lieu de donner un palmarès à une corporation, je pense que les enseignants mériteraient, n'est-ce pas, d'avoir la palme d'or. Parce qu'ils ont tout donné et ils continuent à donner, afin de mettre des Camerounais qui soient aptes à diriger ce pays. Nous sommes tous issus des instituteurs, des enseignants. Nous ne pouvons pas aujourd'hui dénier le fait que les éléments qui sont posés sur la table sont légitimes. C'est tout à fait ça. Donc, nous voulons véritablement que tout soit mis en œuvre afin de résoudre définitivement ce problème. Et je pense que ça serait un cas d'école, il faut le dire. Parce qu'à la résolution de ce problème, je pense que l'administration prendra la mesure nécessaire pour que ce genre de situation ne parvienne plus. Mais il faut quand même féliciter les actions qui ont été mises en place, hein, notamment pour dénuer ce problème. Il faut quand même essayer de le souligner, comme nous avons dit tout à l'heure. Et il faut encourager, n'est-ce pas, ces discussions qui sont établies entre ces différents acteurs qui encadrent l'éducation au Cameroun. Et c'est le lieu pour moi ici d'évoquer un problème assez complexe. Parce que, vous voyez, ce genre de situation, ça conduit souvent à des événements qu'on ne pourrait plus maîtriser. Il est important de frapper la main sur la table définitivement. Et nous devons, nous acteurs politiques, laisser ces gens discuter. Quand je parle de gens, sur la plateforme, plateforme pouvoir public et enseignants, discuter jusqu'à trouver une solution. Ne mettons pas la pression. Autant mieux arriver à une discussion tardive, mais trouver une définition définitive. Une décision, une solution définitive à un problème. Et ils sont les enseignants qui ont soulevé ce problème. Et ce sont eux qui sont en même capables de le résoudre avec le pouvoir public. Tout à fait.
Oui, mais ça se passe sur des administrations qui sont gérées par des enseignants eux-mêmes. Comment est-ce qu'on comprend cela?
Non, écoutez, la corruption n'épargne personne. Hein. C'est la raison pour laquelle le chef d'État a mis sur pied la lutte contre la corruption. La corruption n'épargne personne. Et la corruption est une gangrène pour l'avancée du Cameroun, pour le développement de notre pays. C'est une chose qui est connue. Donc, le fait que ce soit géré par les enseignants, ça n'occulte pas qu'il y a certaines personnes qui sont dans ce corps, qui sont des brebis galeuses, qui entretiennent, n'est-ce pas, cet état de choses. Il faut quand même le souligner parce que certains font exprès de bloquer les dossiers parce qu'ils voudraient que vous veniez discuter financièrement, hein, il faut le souligner, que vous venez discuter afin que votre dossier puisse avancer. Alors que le ministère de la fonction publique a mis sur pied le CJPS. Et je pense que ça va effectivement résoudre ce problème, surtout au niveau des avancements, qui sont l'une des revendications qui a été décriée par les enseignants. Au niveau des avancements automatiques, le CJPS va définitivement résoudre ce problème. Et il faut aussi dire que le CJPS a été instauré au sein des délégations régionales. Donc, on n'a plus besoin de monter à Yaoundé. Il y a un certain nombre de choses qui ont été prises au niveau de la fonction publique pour essayer de laguer les lenteurs administratives. Et il faut quand même le souligner. Et ça amène aussi à l'actif de l'administration. Donc, je pense que ce problème va être résolu.
Yeah, but decentralization, like he is saying, that actually some powers have been sent down to the level of the regional delegations for public service so that they can attend to the people at the regional levels. Most often these things are said theoretically, but practically things are difficult because some persons in Yaoundé may still be pulling the strings, wanting persons from the regions to come up to them, because giving away all the powers to the regions would deprive them of their steady flow of cash from some of these teachers and other workers.
Yes, Mr. Liu, it explains the reason why we think that Cameroon is managed like a private business. Cameroon is managed as it seems as in Cameroon there's only one person's life to be protected. It's a one man's affair. And you know that if power has to leave Yaoundé, money has to leave some pockets. And because some people don't want money to leave their pockets, they have to protect that power from leaving Yaoundé. That one, it's a fact that we should not dispute, because, you know, when you live in a country where every decision, like my brother there said, he said something that the president had decreed that maybe this thing should be done in a faster way. After the decree, the next question is, what did the president do to ensure that that decree was not on a piece of paper? It was on action. It is the same situation in Cameroon, where we celebrate foundation stones, but we never celebrate buildings. We celebrate a president who puts on a fine decree on a fine piece of paper, but it never goes to the grassroots. The question is, where are the checks and balances? What other follow-up measures? You know, taking a decision, to take a decision is different from implementing that decision. When you take a decision, you need to implement. And implementation means you need a lot of follow-up to make sure that it gets to the grassroots. You don't decree and you think that it's going to work. There's one thing, Mr. Leo, that saddens me, that why this woman is crying and why we are preparing to lay Hamidou to rest, while I'm thinking now, presently, that the government is going to send a very respected representative to attend that funeral. And the casket is going to cost very high. And they are going to feed people to celebrate the death of Hamidou. I am sure that's what the government will do. They never listened to him while he was still alive.
Yeah, but is it the government or those charged with the responsibility of handling this service? Because somebody's made a minister of public service, and another is made minister of secondary education. The purpose for the appointment is to make sure that those that are working under you, you take care of them.
Good.
Did the government appoint them and ask them not to do their job?
Mr. Leo, we live in a country of high instruction from the head of state, where all ministers have buried their thinking capacity in the head of the head of state.
Are you saying
Yes.
are you saying that if you were appointed minister tomorrow, let us be practical. Are you saying that if you were made minister of secondary education tomorrow, or minister of public service, and then there are structures that are existing, there are text that shows that advancements are supposed to follow this procedure, and you are not doing your job, it is because you are waiting for high instructions from the President of the Republic?
Mr. Leo, somebody made a statement on this platform that countries work normally. Cameroon works abnormally. Cameroon is not a normal country. I should not be the one telling you that. Cameroon is not normal, because the Ministry of Secondary Education, or Minifropa, they have their budget to run. It is sad that it is the teachers who are calling for a strike action before they are thinking there is a need to disburse 181 billion. It means even the ministry or the minister or the whole association of the people do not know the problem in the field. If it is the teachers who have to raise it. And OTS, in French, they say, on a trop supporté. It means they have resisted it for a very long time. If it is the teachers who are raising this, it means right at the ministry core, at Minisec and Minifropa, they do not properly understand the problem. It is because we think that if one person do not say something, there is no action. Because tomorrow, when this money will be paid, people will thank the head of state and not the Ministry of Secondary Education or Minifropa?
Because they did not do their job. Why would they wait? Why would they wait till the teachers have to strike before they are calling for the president? How do we even understand?
Because wrong people are giving functions.
How do we even understand? Let us move even to the second topic. We have a document that is signed by the Secretary General, the Presidency, who is instructing the disbursement of 2.7 billion francs to be paid to examiners. This is money that supposedly was paid by the students themselves. They paid this money before sitting for the exams, which means that the money was available. Now, how do we wait for these teachers to go on strike before the president is getting information that this is not happening to order the disbursement of this money?
Yeah, you can imagine that the government in which we are running, nobody will tell you sincerely that the Office du Bac and the GC board are still being owned by the state in terms of treasury. Meaning every franc you paid for exams, talking about the autonomy of those organizations, on the paper form, the governments have the financial control over earnings coming in from there. We are talking of Office du Bac. One is very surprising again. Do you know that there are equally GC teachers that have not been paid?
Yes.
And that is what we are thinking. No, we don't know whether the decision of 2.7 was including Office du Bac and the General Certificate of Education. Because the English teachers are waiting. What is happening with the English teachers this time around is that they have been beaten more than enough of this time. And you imagine the guys are no longer making noise. But now if the government comes out to sign 2.7, like I said, that the nation Cameroon is acting abnormal. Exams, marking of exams, I'm telling you that one of the most painful exercise in teaching. Those of us who are involved in the domain, it is money which is catch and carry. We wish that the moment you finish marking and you deposit your marks, you should be giving your money automatic. There's a lot of this is too much of brain work, evaluating. At times some of us put our conscience at a level I don't know. Your mind is tension till the last paper. You ask yourself whether the person mark you have awarded, he merits it or it was not properly done. It is an exercise that goes through a lot of pains, a lot of brain work for the teacher. If it is for 3 or 5 days, I'm telling you that teachers are not at ease until that exercise is completed. They are doing so in the name of the Republic. Then it is surprising, even at the level of the presidency of the Republic, that we waited people to strike before that amount is paid. Do we mean the government was not aware? Who is the government? Those organizing the same exams represent the state. Reports have been made. At the end of each session, reports are made at every center. From one level, from when exam concludes, it's concluded the written phase, reports are made. From when it is marked, reports are made. To the day the results are signed. When results are published, they are not published by teachers who mark the exams. Published results, the results come from the ministry. That is the center that gives instruction. The results can be published now, including concours. Just imagine that. So those who even supervise concours, mark the exams, there was a condition in the past. In the formal practice, it was that results are not released until teachers are paid. That is the practice. You can't release the results without paying teachers. But since we tried the first time, it worked. The second time, it has worked. The third time is like they will even stop paying the exercise. And you even ask yourself how much. The issue is how much is the paper when you mark. Talk less of those who are at the primary and secondary level, that you have a lot of miserable standing 250 per paper, 300 for a paper. You are expected to mark 500 papers of that. What is that? How we just have the African Cup of Nations where we rented private vehicles for people. A lot of money was rented 1 week. If they use yours for 2 weeks, then you know the number of millions. We might not be calling figures here. This money was paid without delay. Then you find somebody that lives on a meager. Some people are expecting 100,000, some are expecting 75,000. Just imagine that. That is the money we are owing. But we are unable to owe the budgets of 100 of millions where we have already a percentage accruing from it. It is laxity. In fact, when President Pobia came in power in 1982, he titled the government rigor and moralization. And we keep on asking the question. The rigor is that the military maintain political power. And that he has done successfully for 40 years. But on the moral part of it, we need to ask if the head of state himself is morally upright. Because it is not normal for you to hold people hostage morally, spiritually, physically, Teachers working for 10 years, not integrated. Black people had to ask for advancement for 10 years. It is supposed to be an automatic process. We cannot be acting in a nation where we think that nobody else reasons in the nation except the head of state. Otherwise, there is no need for labor medals on the 1st of May. A lot of people have been applauded. Military people have been promoted. On what basis? If a least decree of examination money cannot be signed with the liberty of the Ministry of Secondary or Primary Education. It is shocking. We need to change the stalemate. We need to transform the nation.
Okay.
The greatness of a nation depends on the quality of education. And the quality of education will equally depend on the quality of teachers.
Yeah, I'll take a few messages and then we can move on. Hello, good evening, Mr. Leo, and to all the panelists. This is the same situation with my mother-in-law, whose salary has been blocked for the past 12 years working as a headmistress. Till date, nothing has been done. Just do a census and you realize that there are thousands of Hamidous out there with the same problem. Please, can someone somewhere resign from their post for not doing their jobs well? Charles is writing from Bonamusa in Douala. Is this not the real problem? Thousands of Cameroonians are suffering, others are already dying, yet we have persons who seemingly are doing their job. Is this not the time for some persons to resign?
Mr. Leo, you see, I think we should clarify a number of situations. Somebody asked the question, well, you asked that question, why is it that this is happening to ministries headed by teachers?
Teachers, yeah.
Okay. A teacher is heading the teacher is heading Ministry of I think secondary education.
Yes.
Okay. But the problem here is that the Minister of Higher Education is not of secondary education, is not the person paying the teacher.
Yeah.
She's controlling the teacher, using the teachers. But their pay comes from Ministry of Finance. Before Finance gives that pay, Ministry of Public Service has to present their files. That is where the trouble is. So the files have not been presented to Finance by Ministry of Public Service. And the teachers suffer as a result. That is one aspect. The other aspect, we talk of examination fees. When the GC board was created, GC fees were kept by the board. There was no problem. When the government stepped in and said they should pay those monies into the treasury, problem started. Because you have this principle of joint pool of government resources. When the monies are paid into the joint pool, they are used to solve the problems of the moment.
Yes, of the state.
Problems of the moment. When it comes now to time for them to look for money to pay the teachers, it becomes a problem because the money is no longer there. You see, so I think that they should go back so far as the monies concerning examinations are concerned. Let those monies be paid and handled by the various people who are in charge of organizing those exams. Because if you let that money enter the joint pool, you're in trouble. Now, I had the impression something was being said against the president for dishing out money. I don't share that opinion because, you see, when the president orders money to be disbursed, he is ordering from the contingency fund. From the state's contingency fund, what they call case noir. Because there is a problem, he says, oh, get so much from that fund and try to solve the problem. It is not because the president has the money there for that purpose. It's because the people who were supposed to solve that problem haven't done so. So I will not thank the president because it is his duty to use contingency fund to solve emergency situations. But I am saying that the Ministry of Public Service and Ministry of Finance should, as a matter of urgency, treat the pending files of civil servants so that everybody's case should be handled. All the other people who are receiving their salaries have no problem. But these ones who have left school and have been working for years without being, as they call it, integrated.
Yeah, when you say those who have been receiving their salaries have no problem, are you saying that most of them who are actually on strike in all of these schools, They are receiving salaries, but they have a problem of advancement. They have a problem with following
housing.
up, all of that. There are lots and lots of problems that are involved in this. It's not just about the salaries.
Mr. Leo.
Are you saying that the guys who are, can we take a listen to the guys of Lycée de Cité Verte?
Okay.
Le cœur meurtri. Nous sommes mal à l'aise et nous estimons juste que l'État prendra un peu cette affaire au sérieux. Sinon, nous sommes en train comme ça de commencer à la Cité Verte. Et nous avons un peu de chance de commencer en noir. Parce qu'en fait, les conséquences sont déjà en train de commencer. Nous sommes déjà en train de voir des collègues mourir comme des mouches. Alors, chers collègues, OTS à vie, nous voulons l'automatisation de nos avancements, assurance maladie comme partout ailleurs, paiement de nos arriérés de salaire, revalorisation de nos salaires d'ailleurs même. D'autre part, il y a certains qui font déjà le deuil de notre Hamidou, nous ne savons pas ce que l'État fera. Mais ce qui est sûr, nous sommes en contact avec tous les médias et nous saurons exactement comment faire au moment de venir. Le lycée a entré, nous ne sommes pas traîtres comme certains le disent. Le lycée de la Cité Verte a commencé sa grève aujourd'hui. Le mercredi 9, on attendait jusqu'au 8 mars. Nous avons commencé aujourd'hui. Et je crois que ça va aller jusqu'à la gare. Jusqu'à là, OTS, jusqu'à la gare. OTS, jusqu'à la gare. Trop c'est trop. Trop c'est trop. On a trop souffert. C'est bien un pour tous, vous dites, tous pour un. Un pour tous, tous pour un. Un pour tous, tous pour un. Jusqu'à là, jusqu'à là.
Okay, seemingly this is Lycée de Cité Verte. This was done this morning. I have videos from, I'm sure, Lycée de Mbanga and a host of other schools to say that the situation is not getting any better. The teachers in secondary schools are not happy. Nsele.
Yeah, can I just finish, Mr. Leo? You see, we were looking at one aspect of it. That is the people who came out of school, like Hamidou, and have never received a salary. But that is not the only situation, because you have so many cases that are plaguing these teachers. You have the case of examination marking fees. You have this case of people who have received salary advancement, and after that, nothing else. Nothing else. People who start receiving salary, and after some time, the salary is suspended for no reason. And they just hang like that in the air. So there are so many of these cases. I think that these two ministries, the Ministry of Public Service and Ministry of Finance, because those are in my opinion, those are the two ministries that are concerned primarily. Because if you look at something like the research allowances, each time this allowance is paid, it comes straight from the government. I want to believe that when you look at the budget of this secondary school, this Ministry of Secondary Education, you will not see research allowance, because if that money is given and it's not paid to the teachers, there will be serious trouble on the head of the minister. But the fact that the government always makes an envelope shows that that money is not in the budget. It was not given. It is not given.
Okay.
So the government should make sure that all those monies are put inside the budget of these various ministries at the beginning of the school year.
We are taking a short break to continue right after.
C'est bientôt l'heure de ma série sur Novelas.
Ah, mon film aussi passe sur Nollywood, hein.
Avec la nouvelle application Canal+, retrouvez plus de 25 000 programmes en replay, profitez de 200 chaînes en direct et contrôlez votre consommation de data. Téléchargez-la dès maintenant, c'est inclus dans votre abonnement.
Welcome back. Are you watching Prime Hour on My Media Prime? This we are looking at the situation of the teachers. The strike action. They say they will not go back to class until all their problems are solved. But let us look at the situation of teachers in Cameroon. Monsieur Togo, teachers are they are the ones who construct, they define, they prepare the future. Are you comfortable with the treatment, the value, the position that a teacher is given in Cameroon today?
Léonard, je vous ai dit que nous ne sommes pas d'accord avec ce qui se passe. Nous ne sommes pas d'accord. On ne peut pas soutenir cet état de choses.
Parce qu'il y a beaucoup de gens qui disent que les enseignants se plaignent trop.
Non, les enseignants ne demandent pas la révalorisation de leur salaire. Ils demandent juste l'amélioration des conditions de vie. C'est tout ce qu'ils demandent.
Mais est-ce qu'il y a un problème si même ils demandent?
Ils demandent l'amélioration de leurs conditions de vie. Dans leur revendication, tout ce qu'ils ont demandé, c'est ce qui entre dans leurs droits. Notamment les avancements automatiques. Il faut quand même relever que ce n'est pas tous les enseignants qui ont les mêmes problèmes. Il y a certains qui ont les problèmes d'intégration. Et je pense que le ministère de la fonction publique est en train d'évacuer ces problèmes d'intégration. Il y a déjà près de 5000 arrêtés d'intégration qui ont été signés et qui sont déjà disponibles au niveau des délégations régionales de l'enseignement secondaire. Et j'invite, n'est-ce pas, ces enseignants qui ont des problèmes d'intégration à aller rapidement les retirer. Et il y a les problèmes de l'arrêt de l'Office du bac 2020, année 2020-2021. Je pense que ça a été résolu. Sur instruction du chef de l'État, il y a une somme de 2,7 milliards qui a été débloquée. Et il y a le problème d'avancement automatique. Je crois qu'à partir du CJPS, c'est un problème qui sera résolu. Maintenant, il y a le problème, les revendications, notamment sur les 2 tiers. Certains qui ont 2 tiers qui reçoivent 2 tiers de leur salaire et 1 tiers reste en arriéré, qui va être résolu. C'est la raison pour laquelle je dis, ce problème trouvera une issue favorable. Nous encourageons la concertation qui est en cours. Et nous devons encourager, tous les acteurs politiques doivent les encourager. C'est le lieu ici d'appeler les enseignants à ne pas se faire instrumentaliser, à ne pas laisser des gens infiltrer leur corporation. Parce que lorsque les revendications ne sont plus d'ordre éducatif, ça devient d'ordre politique, ça devient difficile à résoudre. Donc il faut éviter ce genre de choses. Maintenant, moi je voudrais dire quelque chose d'assez pertinent. C'est vrai qu'il y a l'unicité des caisses, notamment des frais d'examen du bac, de DC et BOD, comme on a dit, du BPC. Mais le BPC et les entrées en concours n'ont pas ce problème. Le BPC et l'entrée en 6e n'ont pas ce problème. Parce que les enseignants qui ont corrigé les épreuves du BPC, non, ils ont été payés. Ils ont été payés. Le problème se pose au niveau du bac et du DC. Mais qu'est-ce qui fait donc problème? Puisque tous ces frais d'examen sont payés dans une seule caisse. Allez nous interroger ce qui ne va pas. Parce que c'est quand même incompréhensible. Ce que Maître était en train de dire tout à l'heure, au niveau de l'unicité des caisses qui permet à l'État de gérer les problèmes prioritaires, non. Il y a des lignes, il y a des rubriques. Je pense que lorsqu'il y a une somme qui entre dans la caisse, il y a une somme, un montant précis qui entre dans la caisse, ça suit une rubrique précise. Et on ne peut pas bouger les lignes. Maître qui connaît le droit, il sait qu'on ne peut pas bouger les lignes. L'argent qui est prévu peut-être ne peut pas être utilisé à d'autres fins. Maintenant, je pense pour ma part qu'il y a eu un problème au niveau du traitement, des dossiers, comme elle l'a dit, du traitement des dossiers qui doit être acheminé au niveau du ministère des Finances. C'est là où ça fait problème. Notamment, en quittant le ministère de l'enseignement secondaire ou bien l'enseignement de l'éducation de base pour le MINFOPRA et du MINFOPRA pour le ministère des Finances. Je pense qu'il y a un rouleau d'étranglement qui se trouve à ce niveau qui a fait à ce que ce problème a perduré jusqu'aujourd'hui. Et il est important, n'est-ce pas? Et moi, j'appelle les pouvoirs publics à trouver une solution définitive. Parce que c'est comme ça que les problèmes commencent et puis c'est difficile à maîtriser à la fin. Vous avez vu comment certains élèves qui ont été instrumentalisés parce que, il faut le dire, on commençait à faire des marches. Après, voilà. Ça de récupération politique, les gens vont entrer là-dedans et ça sera difficile à résoudre. Donc, moi j'appelle les acteurs politiques à plus de sérénité, à plus de calme. Laissons les acteurs qui sont dans l'enseignement de pouvoir discuter véritablement de ces problèmes. Nous pouvons seulement les encourager et dénoncer, comme nous le faisons pour la plupart du temps, lorsque les choses ne vont pas bien.
Okay, now, are teachers in Cameroon not supposed to be well treated? If a corps was supposed to be considered as that which is well taken care of by the state, was it not supposed to be that of teacher? How do we explain the fact that they are treated like beggars?
Thank you very much, Mr. Leo. I think not only in Cameroon, teachers all over the world should be well treated. And if we should particularize it in the situation of Cameroon, you know, if you want to destroy, one of our politicians in this country once said that the magic of every tall building lies in its foundation. If you want to construct a very good building, you should build the foundation. And I think that teachers are the foundation of every nation. And if you want to destroy the functioning of education or the functioning of a nation, destroy the teachers. Make the teachers to be uncomfortable. Because when teachers are not happy, that is when they teach wrong engineers, that is when they teach wrong politicians, wrong accountants, wrong bankers, wrong drivers, wrong architectures, and that is why the nation becomes wrong. So there is a need to invest in the education of the country to make the teacher comfortable, to make the teacher have the advantage, so that there are a set of people that study all night, people who read all night and teach all day. They should be given that treatment. Because if you take the case of Hamidou, Mr. Liu, it will shock you to know that Hamidou was a healthy man as a student. He served the nation with his flesh and died like a skeleton because of patriotism. It is sad to know that somebody could persist, could resist for that long. I think there is a need to reconsider the treatment of teachers. Mr. Liu, I want to recall to you that when the AFCON was going on, there was a brawl between Côte d'Ivoire and Cameroon. And the first insult was thrown to teachers. The first insult was like, how much do they pay teachers in your country? And if you go and compare it, you realize that they pay their teachers well, comparatively. When Senior Barrister raised the issue of the private, and thank God you said you are going to come to it, that one is even sad. That somebody is crying for receiving 120,000 francs, and there is another person receiving 25,000, 40,000, and they have to go to the same market. Prices of goods and services are increasing. It is no debate here that we used to buy a bag of rice for as low as 12,500. Today it is 25,000 francs. But when you serve in the government for 4 years, they increase you what they call longevity in service, 4,200 francs for serving the country for 4 years, which does not mean. So, if we want to valorize our education system, then we need that the custodians of that system should be treated with respect. Mr. Leo, if you go into the teaching corps, you realize that majority of the teachers have become businessmen and women. Because what they gain do not support them. And that is why at first, teachers used to be focused, your profession is teaching and nothing else. And they were so dedicated.
And the results were there.
And the results were visible. But today, because they are no longer comfortable, the cost of living, the standard of living is changing. You see them, they are teachers and businessmen. if we have to treat the teachers well so that they become comfortable and focused, then we are going to build in a better nation. If not, we will keep building quacks, and it will crumble the nation.
We'll keep building quacks. Now, it has taken the President of the Republic to give high instructions, as usual, through the Secretary General of the... Must we always wait for things to get to where people have to go on strike before the President has to come in as what they call is sapeur-pompier, you know? Yes, why must we wait until what were we doing, especially for the simple, fire extinguisher? Yeah, what were these persons that were supposed to pay simple examinations fees? What were they waiting? What were they waiting for?
Yeah, Mr. Leo, it is shocking because I said the abnormality in the system indicates that the head of state has become obsolete, that the President of the Republic is no longer in control of a nation. The head of state, President Paul Biya, has been one of the top working personnel of the state. He started at age 27, he was already a Secretary General at the Presidency of the Republic. We expect that he knows the problem of the nation and can handle the problems properly. But if the head of state still remains lax, and that some people cannot bear responsibility, and that his name, remember, somewhere we heard that nobody should be as popular as the President of the Republic. So which means even in decision taking, he remains popular. And that some people have even ordained him as God chosen, that God has permitted him to be there. God cannot permit you to be there to see the suffering of Cameroonians and you're unable to respond to. We are talking the list of teachers. Teachers whom when you look even at the salary, they are the lowest in the payroll of the nation Cameroon when you go to treatment of public service workers. How much do they even receive? Because when I ask somebody, as teachers are even crying, how much are they even crying for? Accumulation of this money has made it a burden on the side of the state. But this is the amount of money people embezzle it in just a twinkle of an eye. Olembe Stadium alone has cost the government of Cameroon 200 billion, which means it is money owed to teachers for the past 10 years. What teachers are claiming to have. That is what represents Olembe, where a bag of cement had been sold for 16,400 and a trip of sand was at 700,000 francs. These are the type of, in fact, we even imported pillars. Pillars prefabricated. We imported pillars to construct a stadium. It is shocking for how much money we have put in such accounts because we benefit directly. We borrowed 3 times to complete Olembe Stadium. And so the government cannot give that respect to his human resource engineering the nation. This is education. Like he rightly said, I said when you look around the sub-region, we are the least. Even the countries we cry that they are suffering in terms of teaching payout, they are better. Get to Gabon, get to Benin, get to Equatorial Guinea, and see what happens even in places like Zimbabwe, where we presented them as one of Africa's poorest nations. Look at the status of a teacher. Get equally to Zambia and see, or not talk less of some giants like Kenya and a lot of that in Ghana. And it is shocking. It is appalling. When we look at that situation, a lot of these people know the reality. And then you give budget to people. You remember we constructed a stadium and then we still paid the tickets to go to the stadium. Honorables, parliamentarians, whatsoever, they paid again, bought the tickets again. And we asked, where is the money coming from? Because we were supposed to generate the money by ourselves. This money still came out from government coffers. People were giving number of tickets. Ministry of this, 10 tickets. Mr. That, 200 tickets. This one, 45 tickets. And at the end, look at where we are. For more than 30 years, salaries have not changed in Cameroon. But inflation, Mr. Leo, is shocking. Salaries are not changing. The cost of life is changing. A bag of cement has moved from 1,700 to today we are on 5,300.
Doctor.
Yes.
Doctor, teachers are facing lots and lots of problems, as outlined in the grievances they have presented.
Yeah.
And we have the Minister of Finance that is supposed to do his job. We have the Minister of Public Service, who is also supposed to do his job. We have the Minister of Secondary Education, who is supposed to do his job. It takes the President of the Republic to issue a decree for the disbursement of what then is the role? What is the role of these ministers?
Yeah, one of the things I want you to know, we should equally know that the Minister of Finance stands in the last position. The Minister of Finance work on the report first from the ministry concerned. Once you are recruited by your ministry. Your names are sent to public service. The public service acknowledges. That's the person who signed your contract. The person who signed your contract is your ministry. He directs your contract to public service. Public service prepares its own report now to the Minister of Finance. And so even when we are talking of change of grade, what we want here is that the system has been snail-paced. Meaning, like we say, somewhere someone wrote, you cannot expect all outdated brain to work in a smart generation. We are talking of when the world management system has changed. The people still believe, get to ministries. Some files are working on the ground, on the floor. That's why somebody has spent 30,000 to build a file to come and drop in the ministry. Now the file does not even have where to stand. But then I'm thinking, like we are saying here, it is the responsibility of those ministries. If somebody has changed grade, if somebody is looking for a research grant and they are not coming, the Minister of Finance will tell you that I don't have that on the table. It's just like Barrister said here. When you see the head of state to coming in to give, the head of state is not doing so because he's trying to help Cameroonians. It's not his personal money. It's a recognition that that particular spending was not taken into consideration while accounts were made, and that the money has been used already, which was auto-generated, like when we're talking in the case of exams. That money has been consumed by the state, and now the state is coming in. Now when the pen of the head of state comes, it becomes what we call the wisdom of the head of state, so that we continue. At the end, people are going to write a motion of support to thank the head of state for his wisdom, that he has done what another Cameroonian has done. Should they write a letter to thank somebody for what is ordinary in the management mechanisms of the nation? I am talking presently, we are talking of countries like the United States of America. After COVID, there have been an increase in salaries of all workers by 5%, extending that inflation too has impacted on the life of Americans while they were at home. This is a reasonable economy, that the moment inflation is going up, salaries automatically. You don't need somebody to get into science to start convincing you. But I said we are waiting for the past 30 years. Salaries were slashed down by 65% during the devaluation in 1992. Cameroonians and teachers in particular have suffered the iron of that economic adjustment. And we think it is equally high times that we need to manage public service otherwise. We need to give the responsibility equally to ministers. Then otherwise, we should stop signing this note on high instruction. Comme le chef de l'État, comme ce n'est pas encore décidé par le secrétaire d'État à la présidente de la République, on va toujours continuer à faire comme on fait d'habitude. On va attendre, oui, ils sont écrits, mais ça va attendre là. A lot of the letters were sent to the presidency. If you don't come out, remember, we said some time here ago, for us to have a university in Bamenda people have to strike. Not that the motion was not signed that Bamenda needs a university. Okay. For us to have a university in Boya, meaning Anglophones have to strike. Now it is a case of payment of charges. It is the normal that we are going to strike, and then the government will come back to its senses.
Mr. Liu, I'm listening to you guys and laughing. This is just a matter of fact. Elijah Enwaka is writing from Canada. Good evening to you. This one says, good evening to you all in the studio. Those people like the word instrumentalized in a sister TV station. Yesterday we followed that even basic education is also on strike for all what the secondary school teachers are asking, including arrears in remunerations, in marking examinations. George is writing from Bamenda. Okay. Valerie says, good evening, Mr. Liu. It's quite regrettable that teachers who are the brain behind the drive to economic growth and development of a nation are neglected. When they are not happy, you wouldn't know what kind of knowledge would be impacted. Valerie is writing there, good evening, Mr. Liu and panelists. Minesec and Minfopra are not the cause of the non-payment of teachers' dues. Minfi and the Prime Ministry are the ones delaying their payment. The present Minister of Minesec even had to suspend the payment of advancement dues just to see the newly recruited teachers are paid. She is working hard to see into either teachers' advancements are paid automatically by signing out advancement decisions nearly every month. Okay, this is Oben writing from Limbe. Good evening to you, Oben. Good evening, Mr. Kum. I have a colleague in my school whose salary has been suspended since November 2021 without any justification, whereas on duty post, she's on duty post. The problem of the teachers are profound. Oku John Kum writing from Balmayo. Good evening, Mr. Liu, and to all your panel members. We have a government with wicked individuals holding positions in it. We all will say rest in peace now to the late Hamidou, after dying while producing people who will bring glory to the nation, and he was being abandoned to himself. Mr. Liu, teachers are not treated the way they are to be treated. They are being relegated to the back, which is not good. These teachers are also parents. They pay rents, pay for their children, provide for the food. Okay, Cameroon is suffering because of the centralized government we have. Everything is centered in Yaoundé and taking a long time for it, for solutions to be provided. Good evening, Mr. Liu. The government we are having is just not serious, and if the strike was in the northwest or southwest, they would send those okay, to brutalize them. Okay. Good evening, Mr. Leo. It's a pity that the Android world and we are still going through problems of the Stone Age. The ministers are afraid of disbursing monies down to the ministry because they need to contribute that same money to assist the head of state when he is going out of the country. Wilson Ama is writing from Bamenda. I'm not sure that's not true. Good evening, Leo. Our country is on fire. Daniel is writing from Libreville. That's in Gabon. Good evening to you. Good evening, Mr. Leo. If somebody explains to you how Cameroon functions and you say you understand, it means you have not understood anything. This is Cameroon for us. Ima is writing from Bamenda. Now, how urgent is it for the government to solve this problem of the teachers?
Mr. Leo, before I go to that one, you asked a question earlier. Must people always wait
for the President of the Republic?
That's the thing.
Yes.
Mr. Leo, you see, if people don't come out to ask for their rights, how would the president know that there's a problem? Because what we have in this country, you see, many people who control others cover the monies. They collect all this money and cover. And until there is problem from under, the money doesn't come out. So I think I would encourage people to always, please, ask for your rights. Because if you don't ask for your rights, the people above there will not know that those monies have not been paid to you. We've seen that severally. Soldiers who came from Central Africa, their dues were almost swallowed. When they came out, then everybody knew that there was a problem and the monies were given to them. You see, so it is necessary for people to speak out and say they are owing us this. That if the monies have been paid by those who are up there, the people who are keeping the monies down will provide them. Now, you said how urgent is it for this problem to be solved? Well, I want us to remember that the Anglophone crisis started as a result partly of education, of problems in education. And it's not very comfortable when you have secondary education, now basic education, and higher education may follow, because they too are not comfortable. So it's not very comfortable. I think the government should do everything to bring this crisis to an end so that it does not have a litmus effect touching that will spread and contaminate all the other sectors. Because as I said, this salary thing does not only concern education, it concerns all civil servants. And you know what, you don't want to imagine if this thing were to continue for some time, it is likely to bring about a general strike of all the civil service, and that would be really bad. It would be really bad. If they should solve it, the president has made a first step by disbursing examination allowance, but they should go ahead and solve the other ones. We have friends from outside. I hear the government is receiving some money from IF. Please enter that one too and slide something to satisfy the teachers. That will be better than allowing the thing to get rotten and giving us more headache. Well, I think there is also something that Mr. Dr. Aku has been clamoring here for this on this issue of inflation, of hyperinflation. Hyperinflation. You are talking of teachers who don't even have the money, yet salaries have not been increased. The salaries that they are due have not been paid. And there is hyperinflation. So I think it is also high time for the government to come up with some contingency plan to say, please, let us put this one on the table. You have suffered enough for COVID. Let me put something on the table for people also to get some small breathing space. That would be nice. Like we had these measures that were taken in 2008 to alleviate, n'est-ce pas, alleviate this cost of living because of the poverty strikes. So I think it is high time to something be put on the table so as to stabilize the prices in the market and make people live a little bit more comfortable, because now like this, the situation is very, very bad, because the slightest problem that will be political spark that will occur is likely to create a great deal of damage. The situation is not good at all, because when you have a teacher strike that leads people to take to the streets, that's very, very bad.
Okay.
You can arrest teachers. Can you arrest those children who are old, 5 years old? By the law, these children cannot be prosecuted before any court. So it is very bad. We should encourage the government to solve this problem very fast and to the satisfaction of our teachers.
Okay, solve the problem very fast and to the satisfaction of our teachers. What should be done in arresting of ce secteur? Yes. Qu'est-ce qu'il faut faire pour arrêter ce qui se passe? Parce que quand ça a commencé, the first week, on n'a pas vu beaucoup de gens s'identifier. Dans la semaine passée, on a vu plus de gens. Cette semaine, on a vu les élèves qui sont sortis de Mabanda. Nous avions vu les élèves. Nous avions vu les élèves à Ebolova. Nous avions vu les élèves à Banga. Et aujourd'hui, vous avez vu les images, les vidéos qui sont postées où le lycée des cités qui attendaient seulement qu'on célèbre le 8 mars et qui sont... Qu'est-ce qu'il faut faire?
Bon, déjà, il faut continuer la concertation qui est engagée avec les pouvoirs publics. Hein. Et nous, acteurs politiques, nous devons encourager cela. Mais je pense que les problèmes doivent se résoudre de manière prioritaire. Il faut quand même relever qu'il y a des décisions qui ont été prises autour de cette concertation, qui ont déjà été prises, qui ont quand même permis, n'est-ce pas, de solutionner certaines revendications. Pour le paiement maintenant des arriérés et autres, notamment ceux qui n'ont pas encore, qui ne sont pas encore pris en compte par le fichier sort de l'État, je pense que le ministère de l'enseignement secondaire devrait, pour ma part, chaque année inclure, n'est-ce pas, ces arriérés-là dans son budget pour commencer à les épurer. Je pense que si il le faisait un peu plus tôt, c'est là où nous pointons du doigt ces responsables du département ministériel concerné, à savoir l'éducation de base et l'éducation de l'enseignement secondaire. Parce que s'ils inséraient progressivement ces arrêts de salaire dans leur budget, forcément ça aurait déjà pu être épuré, ça n'aurait pas créé un préjudice jusqu'aujourd'hui. Bon, pour l'instant, je pense que il faut quand même que, en fonction, n'est-ce pas, des moyens dont dispose l'État, il faudrait que les enseignants essayent encore de faire un sacerdoce en plus. C'est vrai qu'ils ont sacrifié énormément, mais attendre encore un peu, ce n'est pas tuant, pour que l'État puisse épurer, n'est-ce pas, ces arrêts au fur et à mesure. Parce que je me pose bien la question, où est-ce que l'État prendra 181 milliards actuellement pour résoudre ce problème? Donc, je pense pour ma part que dans les concertations, il faudrait échelonner, n'est-ce pas, les paiements, enfin, n'est-ce pas, de pouvoir, peut-être dans 5 ou 10 ans, épurer complètement cette dette.
Oui, mais est-ce qu'il n'est pas aussi dangereux parce que, comme vous êtes en train d'appeler à la classe politique, n'est pas s'y mêler, parce que beaucoup de gens aimeraient prendre, je ne sais pas, récupérer.
Tout à fait.
Est-ce que quand on met ça très long, est-ce que ça n'ouvre pas?
Tout viendra, n'est-ce pas, des discussions dont ces acteurs vont, les solutions dont ces acteurs vont trouver. D'accord? Il peut arriver, vous savez même qu'au sein même de ces coopérations, surtout au niveau des syndicats des enseignants, il y a même certains syndicats qui se revendiquent ne pas être dans ces pourparlers, à savoir le mouvement OTS, qui se dit ne pas être impliqué dans ces pourparlers. Donc, c'est ça véritablement le problème, parce que déjà même au sein de cette coopération, on a comme l'impression qu'ils n'arrivent pas à s'accorder déjà sur ceux qui vont porter la voix de ces enseignants-là. Donc, il faut véritablement résoudre déjà en interne ce problème. Mais je crois pour ma part que la plateforme qui est mise en place, ils doivent trouver une solution. Nous, les acteurs politiques, ne devons pas nous amener. Parce que nous savons généralement que lorsque les acteurs politiques s'en mêlent, ça devient une situation qui devient ingérable. Alors qu'ils auraient pu, n'est-ce pas, en interne, n'est-ce pas, trouver des solutions. Si les enseignants acceptent de se faire payer de manière échelonnée dans 5 ans, quel sera le problème? Le plus important pour nous, c'est quoi? Ils retrouvent les salles de classe, qu'ils dispensent les cours. C'est ça le plus important. C'est à eux de trouver les solutions avec les pouvoirs publics. Maintenant, nous ne devons pas nous emmener. C'est ça qu'il est question. Nous devons plutôt soutenir toute initiative et toutes les solutions qui seront prises, n'est-ce pas, par cette plateforme.
Now, Derick, is the problem at the level of taking decisions as to what to do, or concretely taking actions to arrest the situation? Because, for example, if we were to look at what has happened in other crises in the nation, decisions are arrived at. The tripartite took place in Yaoundé in the 90s. There are decisions that were arrived at, and people thought that, okay, the tripartite was going to fix our problem. But when it came to its implementation, it never followed, and that accumulated more frustrations and created bigger problems. Is the problem not telling the people that this is what is available, this is where the problem is, and this is how we are solving it, giving timelines?
Yes, in the words of Dr. Akko, he says Cameroon is a snail-paced country. I did mention here that taking a decision and implementation, they are two different things. You may take a very good decision. Once that decision is not implemented to the latter, it becomes bad. You may have very good promises. Once the action is not taken, it becomes bad. So what we need in Cameroon to change the stalemate is to act. We are tired of promises every day. And I want to advise the teachers, if action is not taken and it's still about decision, about promises, do not give up anytime soon. It's my advice, because it is very clear that
we are not part of the strike actions. We are analyzing. You are giving.
Mr. Liu, I say it's my advice that if they don't wait for the actions to be taken and they listen to the promises, it might not end well. Mr. Liu, let me tell you that.
Should we not strike a compromise?
Yes, no. Mr. Liu, please, we are taking.
These are some of the rhetorics that have left our children.
Mr. Liu, we are taking the teachers' strike.
For 5 years without going
we are taking the teachers' strike to have started with OTS. It's a lie. The problem of these teachers is a far away problem. It did not start today. Maybe we're just looking at it because of a Cremor. It's something that teachers have been crying. And if the government has to act, Mr. Liu, I want to advise the government on how to stop this. If 1 billion francs is used per day to sponsor the war in Northwest and Southwest, 200 days may help to solve this problem. If you can stop the war and stop using 1 billion francs per day to sponsor the war in 200 days, you may save the money that you have budgeted to sponsor the war and solve this problem. Because we are planning a time bomb if this thing goes to the streets. If those children goes to the street, it's going to be very dangerous. So what we think is that the government should leave the words of promises and act. 200 billion used to build a stadium, and that money was borrowed. If they need to borrow money to give the teachers to solve their problem, because no landlord will permit a tenant to stay in his house for 1 year, for 2 months, talk less of a year, without paying. How have the teachers been surviving? How have they been feeding? How have they been sponsoring their own children to school? This will make me to be tempted to say that I cannot explain the reason why government officials do not send their own children to these government schools, because they know that teachers are treated badly and they will not give very good results.
Okay, this is the situation as we speak. Dr. Aku, you are a teacher yourself. It's not good for our students because many of them are not getting the required knowledge, especially for those in examination classes.
Yeah, we are not talking of examination even. I'm not too much bothered about that. Right? My worry is the nation we are training, the future of the nation. When teachers live within, in labor law, we are told that when labor is motivated, the quality of labor increases. The output equally increases. Like we just mentioned here, when we grew up around 1989, 1994, I could see primary school teachers driving in Range Rovers. I could see primary school teachers with a Peugeot 505 at the time that were reserved for SDOs. A primary school teacher has a Peugeot 505. And you ask the situation today, the salary is at 110,000 to begin with, 115,000, and you live in a town like Douala. You are expected to be in a town like Kongsamba. You are paying house rent. Except you are living in a room in Douala, a single room is 35,000, and expect transport from that money, healthcare from that money, madam's allowances, social engagement within that. That has caused teachers today, like he said, to become what we call businessmen. Business at times, not only in terms of business in class. The lesson is not given to the fullest because the same teacher has extra classes at the end of the day. Meaning parents pay in school fees, parents pay repetition classes in the same school. Imagine that. Those parents still have repetition classes in school, they still have a home teacher that visits the house to teach. The chain is too much. Talking about teaching, if you get into practical aspect of it, you will realize that the teacher who is trying to earn a bit in Douala at the end of the day does not even sit down in his own house, because the moment he finishes classes, he has that group of people who attend classes in school there. He spends 1 hour 30 minutes. Then he has again another home teaching in another village or another quarter far from where he's working. Transport again. He comes back home already exhausted. He's coming the next day to start teaching again. What quality teaching are you going to receive? It comes down again with what we have in Cameroon, even in the higher education system, where professors now leave offices, classroom to become politicians. They support and even give a dime, a dash to the head of state. A lot of them coin him as the natural candidate just because they want to seek recognition. Recognition why? We need appointment. This appointment is the stepping stone that those who have appointed receive the favor of the prince, the signature of the king. So they are the ones that have been qualified in the system. And so those who tell lies a lot in the name of professors, doctors, as politicians, are the ones that are promoted. What becomes of those ones that have not been promoted who are teaching in classroom? What type of teaching do you receive? People who are trained to be in class. That's what I'm telling you somewhere. People don't know. The United States alone spent about $18 billion on teachers' allowances and research. That's research. Teachers are given a salary close to about $1 million, $2 million, $3 million francs a month. Why? The aspect is that you are taught to go off. You were meant for the classroom. You were meant for the classroom. Do your research, teach, give your lecture. And our pay, this is what goes. Within a week, this is what you receive. There in such a system, today we are talking of modern day teaching. People don't just use by the chalk. We need not come with books again. There is online teaching, a lot of platforms. Teachers sit in their homes and animate lectures of 1,000 students online. This is a new Almost of which you will not find it in Cameroon. We are still so congested with the classroom nature. How much do you pay these people? How much will a teacher buy a computer? Like we're talking of the situation in South Korea, where students have been advised to come to class only with a tablet, and that all their courses and textbooks are found in the e-library. You are in class. Imagine the level. A teacher that goes through stress, he's teaching in class and advises you, go to your e-library, type this book, then read this page. You are doing that in class because there is that fullness, there is that total internal satisfaction of being in a classroom. There is that quality. That is why somebody will tell you that when you find such systems where teachers have been treated well, the morale, the standard of the nation. In fact, Nigeria celebrated his 50 years. There was something written, when you find great people, you find a great nation. Are Cameroonians great? If Cameroonians are not great, then there's a problem with the educational system.
Okay, there's a problem with the educational system. Lots of problems with advancements, with the treatment of files, with people who have to move to Ewane. Is this time for the government, the respective ministries who have been asked themselves to give out some of these powers to effectively implement this? Because when you take up all the powers to yourself in Yaoundé, the work becomes cumbersome. Is this time for us to leave a fully decentralized system as far as secondary education is concerned, as far as the public service is concerned?
Yeah, yes, Mr. Leo. You see, we are actually living a management crisis of the public service. The public service management is showing its limits when it comes to over-centralization. You see, like we have been discussing, workers who have been employed by the Ministry of Education have to send their files to the Ministry of Public Service for servicing, and then they now go on to Ministry of Finance. It is showing its limits. Like I was saying, you see, a Reform Party recommends that people be employed at the regional level. We don't, all of us don't need to go to Yaoundé. Bring those who are working in the regions should be employed at the regions. Let their files remain at the regions. Nothing goes there to Yaoundé. And that way, the volume of work that will be treated by the people who are in charge of handling these files will be lesser. You see, it will be lesser, and the treatment will be more efficient. But if everybody has to send his files to Yaoundé, Master, you have tons and tons and tons that create congestion in the management and malpractice. You have people who will remove the files and hide, waiting for you to come, give them some small tips before they can take your file and put it back in the system. It's horrible. I think it's time that alternative procedures be experimented. I want to thank the CPDM representative because he gave a very nice suggestion. You see, the Minister of Education should not just sit and wait for teachers to be bringing small problems. He should actually look into the problems of the teachers. Who is receiving his salary, who is not receiving? If at the end of the year the Minister of Education comes up with a list of teachers who are not receiving salaries and tells Minister of Public Service, please, I have 1,000 teachers who are not receiving salaries, who have not been integrated. That enables the Minister of Public Service to act immediately on those cases. And his teachers will not have that problem anymore. And if it persists, why not table it to the Assembly so that their salaries be sent to you straight, if that is possible? But you see, the system is such that it is only the Ministry of Finance that pays. So they should make it possible for the minister to impact on the Minister of Public Service, you see, take action on the people I command. Otherwise, we're going to continue getting these type of situations where people will have to stop work, take to the streets in order to make their voices heard and find solutions to their problems, which ought not even be called problems, because when you work, you are supposed to receive your salary. You don't have to go to the streets for your salary to be paid. If it is happening, therefore there is a major flaw in the system. And when a system starts presenting this type of flaws, it is time for it to collapse. We are saying that over-centralization has shown its limits. We thank the people of Cameroon for bringing decentralization. from the Constitution of 1996. Please put it in place. These people who are resisting decentralization by maintaining over-centralization, please, it is time for you to let go. Let the councils be empowered. The council and regions be empowered to take control of the salaries of people working within the region. I think that is the solution, sir.
Okay, no, I think that's a solution. Mr. Leo, the government doesn't not even need to hold a meeting to solve the problem. More than what they need is in the pocket of a former minister in prison. More than that is in the pockets of those who stole COVID-19 money. Is it difficult to take the money from them? They know what they are doing. Thus, government is very happy when problems arise. That is why even when a bit of calmness tries to manifest, they go as far as getting into our Momo accounts. Money gotten from stolen Momo money for just 1 month is enough to pay all teachers. Tiku Felix is writing from Boya. Good evening to you, Tiku Felix. Mr. Leo, good evening and all your panelists. Mr. Leo, I had doubled posting, and because of this, my salary was suspended for 3 years for a crime I didn't commit. This salary was only reinstated after the above mentioned years, but for the arrears, I wonder if I will ever receive it. Okay, the governors and DOs have just been given brand new cars. What is wrong? What wrong have teachers done to deserve this terrible treatment? Okay. Glennis is writing from Bamenda. Ceux qui demandent qu'on attend 10 ans, je pose la question, oserait-il tenir le même discours face aux lauréats de l'ENAM ou de l'EMIA? Je ne pense pas. C'est depuis 2017 que les discussions ont commencé et aujourd'hui, en 2022, c'est toujours les réunions et comités d'ad hoc interminables. Vous avez demandé un temps soit peu comment nous nous nourrissons face à une société où tout doit s'acheter. En fait, nous sommes aujourd'hui imperméables aux beaux discours et jolies promesses. Nous ne voulons pas mourir sans goûter à notre argent comme notre mati collègue Hamidou. OK? Non, soit toi. Mr. Liu and your panel, good evening. I want to take this opportunity to forward to you what does the Minister of Agriculture and his GM of CDC talk about workers' salaries since 2016? Workers slaves to them. Thanks. Daniel writing from Boya. Good evening, Mr. Liu and your wonderful panelists. Elvis Brown watching from Shell, New Bell. Daisy watching from Kumbasis. Good evening, Mr. Liu, and to all the wonderful panelists. I'm enjoying the program. Thank you, Daisy. Good evening, Mr. Liu. Thank you for the program. Thank you, too. Good evening, Mr. Liu. Teachers are asking for salaries advancements, complete salary, not to TET and arrears, but for the high instructions of the head of state, he decided to sign a communique to pay money for office debug. What the teachers do in Cameroon, other ministries have salaries, fuel allowance, etc., but the teachers benefit only salary, but they don't still pay. Celestine is writing from Pamenda Teku. Says, good evening, Mr. Liu. I think we are leaving out the Minister of the Economy. This is where all the planning is done. This problem just shows that the country is completely down and there is no quick fix. God help us. Teku is writing from Boya. Good evening, sir. This is Batemon. The president should be responsible for payment of salaries. Why must he give a decree before payments are made? What is the use of the ministry in charge? This is useless. Mr. Liu, the Ministry of Secondary and Higher Education is responsible for that, okay? It's a shame, okay? Good evening, Mr. Liu. We don't know why people who have been appointed by the president are competent and intellectual people are using the Cameroonians and the president is sitting quiet until poor Cameroonians went up to the streets. What are the rules of the ministers? Okay, what role should ministers play? This one says, good Morning, Mr. Leo. Please, there is this school in Douala called, okay, can you ask me that question after? That's not what we are talking now, please. Good evening, Mr. Leo. Yes, I know of the sad situation that is happening in Isu, out there in Fungom subdivision, Nanchum division, northwest region of Cameroon, where we are getting information, I'll be following up that the phone is reportedly killed on his way back from taking part in the enthronement a ceremony of the fun of Wei that took place yesterday out there in Wei village. On his way back, we are told that he was attacked and has been killed, but we cannot actually confirm that information. Almost everybody says it's true, but I pray it's not true, because qu'est-ce qu'il faut faire pour arrêter ce problème? Il faut donner 10, 5 ans comme vous...
Non, en fait, peut-être celle qui vous a envoyé un message, votre auditeur m'a mal suivi tout à l'heure.
Okay.
J'ai dit, parmi les solutions qu'on peut préconiser, on pourrait, n'est-ce pas, épurer la dette chaque année et voir si ça peut atteindre 5 ans. Je n'ai jamais dit que c'est dans 5 ans qu'on va résoudre, dans 10 ans. Non, j'ai dit, on intègre ça dans le budget. Et puis, on épure chaque année jusqu'à ce que la dette soit définitivement payée. Donc, ce que moi je voudrais dire, il ne faudrait pas que nous instrumentalisons les enseignants. Comme mon frère l'a dit tout à l'heure, que s'il n'y a pas d'argent, qui ne retourne pas à l'école. Non, nous sommes ici avec un message d'apaisement. Parce que ça n'honore personne. Ça ne nous arrange pas, cette situation. Et nous, en premier, au sein du RDPC. Parce que, rappelez-vous que je vous ai dit tout à l'heure que j'ai des enseignants, collègues, qui sont dans cette situation. Donc, je ne peux pas venir ici soutenir ces administrations-là face à ce problème. Non. Nous sommes du côté des enseignants. Mais nous soutenons la discussion, le dialogue qui a été institué par ces différents acteurs. Et nous apportons des solutions. Il serait difficile ici, ou bien il serait maladroit, de venir dire que personne ne doit, les enseignants ne doivent pas retourner à l'école si on ne leur remet pas tout leur argent. Non, il faut qu'on fasse quand même preuve de bon sens.
Ok.
Bon, mais je voulais simplement dire que, pour ma part, je pense que ce problème peut être résolu de plusieurs façons. Soit on trouve cet argent au niveau de la ligne 95 ou 65 qui va de l'intervention de l'État, soit, pour ma foi, on le met à la dette, puisqu'il a la dette, on le met au budget et on commence à l'épurer jusqu'à ce qu'elle soit complètement remboursée.
Okay.
On voit mes solutions. Mais je dis, il faut que nous soutenons la plateforme actuelle parce que c'est au sortir de là, les résolutions qu'ils prendront, il faudrait que nous les respections. Okay. Même s'ils décident de balayer cela d'un revers de la main, nous devons les soutenir. Mais je pense que les pouvoirs publics feront tout pour résoudre définitivement ce problème. Parce que ça a toujours été le cas. Il y a certaines revendications au niveau des intégrations des enseignements du ministère de l'enseignement supérieur qui ont été prises en compte lorsque ils ont demandé à ce que le quota soit revu à la hausse. Et le chef de l'État a demandé et puis ils ont été pris. Ils ont été tous intégrés.
Hello, Mr. Leo. It's Queenette from Kumba. Mr. Leo, teachers and doctors need to be paid very well. Okay? The salary situation of doctors are not also good. Yes. Good evening, Mr. Leo, and your panel in the studio. Thanks for the program and keep it up. Tamfu is writing from Bomenda. Good evening, Mr. Leo. Earlier, the government sees how to solve this issue, the better, because if care is not taken, the situation will be worse than that of the Anglophone crisis. Taku is writing from Kumba. Good evening, Mr. Leo, and blessings to you. We can't neglect the teachers because they are the holders of Cameroon's younger generation. They should be treated well. They should receive all their monies. The government should not neglect this. Thank you, Leo. Kenjo, Larissa, watching from Yaoundé. Good evening to you, Larissa. Greetings, Mr. Liu and the entire panel. Our teachers should not accept any promises. Me because it won't pay their rent or hospital bills. Franklin is writing from Thailand. Greetings, Mr. Liu, and to all those on your panel. When I see the cars handed to governors and deals and see that which the teachers are going through, it's a pity. Babila is writing from Bomenda. One minute each, please. What should be the posture of teachers? They should also be open to dialogue.
Of course, Mr. Leo, dialogue solves a lot of problems. And I think that it should be a sincere dialogue. Right? It should not be promises. We understand that teachers going to the streets is a risk on the part of the children that are being entrusted for them to teach. But at the same time, we also think that if it was another emergency, then we would have had an emergency solution. And we do not want to look at the teacher's situation as if it is not an emergency. It is a matter of urgency. Why teachers are struggling to think their way forward, the government should act and not promise, because these people need to pay their rents, they need to pay their feeding, they need transport, they need dressing, and the cost and standard of living is increasing every day. And I'm not sure anybody can pay rent and feed himself and go to school by promises. Why the teachers should hold their ground to make sure that the solutions are concrete. I think they should be steadfast and then stay put, while the government should come to the table with good faith to make sure that this money is provided and the other problems tabled by the teachers are looked into detailing. Mr. Leo.
Okay. Senior Barrister, one last word, please. What should be the posture of politicians like yourself?
Mr. Leo, you see, if you work, you must have your salary.
Okay.
I don't think that it's a question that calls for negotiations. The government should consider that these teachers have water on their skulls. Their noses are inside water. It is a crisis for survival. They should, like the CPDM representative said here, they should look for money from either line, the budgetary line number 95 or 65, and solve this thing. Because you see, if the government could budget the purchase of luxurious cars for administrators, I mean, it was budgeted since last year. Well, those cars have been bought. People are crying, but it is not a matter of money. There is money that can be used to pay these teachers. It's a matter of priority. So they should prioritize the payment of those salaries and advantages so that we can have good quality education. Because I don't see how a teacher can continue teaching without having what can enable him to pay his rents, feed his family, send his own children to school. No, it's not possible. Please, let them give these teachers their monies. For me, I don't think it is a matter that should call for any negotiation. The government should look for money and pay these teachers.
Okay.
There should be no trouble.
Doctor, one last word before we depart.
Yeah, one of the things the government of Cameroon has been doing is that sometimes they will give up their mind and that they are tired of talking. And nothing will cause us to talk with the teachers as long as the solutions are not found. Continuous dialogue, continuous negotiation. We should equally be ready that on both sides, we are going to give up certain things for the interest of all. Teachers need a better treatment in Cameroon. We said the strength of the nation relies on the quality of education that the nation receives. And if some nations are very proud, it's the quality education. We move out of this nation to pay every day. in those other places. There is need for Cameroon equally to use its educational system and attract admiration from the rest of the world. There's more Cameroon can do. 60 years after independence, a lot is supposed to be done. The teachers are supposed to be better treated, better salaries. Why not? Away from just giving what they are asking, what type of gest can the government do, if not increasing the salary even up to the level of 40%? It might cause in a more participatory involvement in nation building.
We want to thank all of you who came, Senior Barrister Ashu Emmanuel, and to you, Dr. Ako John Ako, Song Derick, and Mr. Etogo. Thank you all for answering present for tonight's edition of the program. I still do not want to believe what I'm getting from the floor of my phone.
Oh, that's your phone.
Yes, it's... Stay blessed. Bye-bye.